Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Enter the House of Coppola here on the Houselights podcast as we tour through and finish our journey with Francis Ford Coppola of the 1970s with the absolute show-stopping, legendary production of Apocalypse Now, the Vietnam epic partially based on Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. I'm one of your hosts, John Mills, and joining me on this journey upriver, on this wonderful boat, as we go by all of these war scenes and these natives and this strange plantation that came out of nowhere, it seems. Joining me is Tristan Riddell. Tristan, how are you today?
The other day, I was baking cookies with my daughter, and I forgot to put on oven mitts. And when I pulled out the cookies, I wept. I cried like some kind of grandmother.
It doesn't seem an overreaction at all. Darren, Dr. Sci-Fi himself, welcome back, of course, to House of Coppola. And this, as everybody knows who's been listening to this series, this is going to be yet another Coppola film you're seeing for the first time. And so welcome, and how are you today?
You know, this is great. If anything, it makes Tropic Thunder make a lot more sense.
That's an excellent point I hadn't thought of. Something else I have been thinking of, though, is how everybody can reach out to us, of course, on thenerdparty.com/contact. Drop us a line. Let us know what you think. Let us know maybe some filmmakers that you want us to cover, maybe some eras that you want us to double back to. You can, of course, reach out to the show on Twitter at Join Nerd Party, and you can reach out on Facebook and Instagram by looking for the Nerd Party there. And, of course, if you're enjoying what you're hearing here on House of Coppola, or Houselights as a whole, I should say, go on over to Apple Podcasts, give us a star rating and review. We would truly, truly appreciate it. But something I appreciate is that you two have taken this journey through Coppola of the 1970s. And typically, of course, you know, we talk about this. We talk about our first time viewing it. We talk about all these sorts of things. I've got to know, having gone through the three movies to get to this point, Darren, how much were you anticipating seeing Apocalypse Now? Were you excited going into this? Did you look at the running time this time and say, oh, come on? Is it possible for you to make a shorter film?
Especially the version you guys picked. Oh my God. It's like, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, wait, we're going to watch.
It's the shorter than the redo version. The Redux.
That's true.
Oh,
this is a film with three different running times, and none of them are small asks of your time. But were you going into this with any sort of excitement? What did you know going into Apocalypse Now?
I'd say of all of these, this was the one I knew the most about. I mean, it's permeated pop culture. I'd actually watched a couple of YouTube videos before I was even on Houselights where a film student was deconstructing Coppola, and they were going like scene by scene through Apocalypse. And I watched up through like the last one I saw was the scene where he's getting recruited into the mission. So not very far into the movie, but so I knew that Harrison Ford pops up again because apparently that happens in Coppola films, and Robert Duvall is there. And, I know I love the smell of napalm in the morning, and that I think I knew it was on a PT boat, or that was a major part. I knew Marlon Brando was in it. That iconic imagery of him coming out of the smoke with the grease paint on, and things like that. There was definitely a lot that I didn't know that was surprising and interesting. But yeah, this one was definitely, I think I knew a little bit of what I was getting into, and especially after watching three Coppola films in a row, I'm like, okay, it's Coppola. He has his own flavor, that is for sure, and it really shines in this movie. So, but of the four, this one had permeated a little bit more than the others.
Yeah, I'm glad you called out. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. I think that once you get past the age of about 10. almost everybody is familiar with that line in some way. And I mean, it gets references on sitcoms and all of those sorts of things. And it's really a testament, I think, to the fact that with these previous films, you had known this or that, or maybe seen a clip here or there, but you're able to actually recall the actual line. Knowing the line that's given is, I think, a real testament to what an impression that this made. Now, you mentioned the running times. And
I'm still running.
Yeah. Tristan, I'm going to toss this over to you as somebody who has seen it before. Traditional question. When was the first time you ran across Apocalypse Now? And have you've seen all three versions up to this point? And did you have a preferred version of the two before Final Cut?
I had never seen Final Cut until last night. I'd only seen theatrical and Redux. And the Redux to me was like, oh my God. like it was just, it was like a trudge at points where I'm like, okay, let's
Is the Redux longer of the three?
The Redux is the longest of the three.
Like, so then he took out stuff for the Final Cut.
Yeah, like what happened was that Coppola financed, like when it went over budget, he had millions of his own dollars in it, where he had to mortgage his house and his vineyard in order to finance it because they went so over budget. And he cut it. You know, like the studio was just like, you got to make this shorter. And he's like, okay, cool. No, that's fine. I'll totally make it shorter, because he wanted a bigger return on his investment so that he didn't lose his house. And so he made a shortened version. And then when that came out, and, you know, years later, he's like, you know what? I shot, what was it? 200 hours, 230 hours of footage.
Something obscene, something absolutely obscene.
And because he shot so much, he's just like, you know what? I was a little too cut happy. And so he went back, made the Redux version. And then years after that, he's just like, I maybe took too many liberties there.
But see,
and then did the Final Cut.
What's interesting about Redux, Redo, however you pronounce it, is the fact that they didn't just insert footage back in. They actually went back and did a substantial re-edit of certain things. So it was, in fact, a different experience. And I think I'm the only person on the planet that would have been hard-pressed to choose a favorite between the two. But Tristan, when you encountered it for the first time, it was undoubtedly the theatrical version.
Yes, very much.
Was Dom DeLuise hosting it for a different, like Memorial Day weekend or something? Or
oh man, Veterans Day, yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. Ooh, that's an awkward cookout.
Ain't it?
Yeah. No. Yeah. It was honestly, I think I watched it on a crappy VHS that I got from the library. And it was when I was in either middle school or high school. It was in my watch everything phase. I was trying to catch up on the classics, and I was this was one of them where it's just like, this is referenced all the time. I know a lot about it, but I've never seen it. And so I grabbed it from the library on a VHS copy. And any of you who have the Blu-ray at home or have the digital version at home, there's this really cool 2-minute feature that shows you the varying qualities of how it was released. And it shows you the Valkyrie scene, and it shows you the crappy VHS copy, then the Betamax version, then VHS letterbox, then Laserdisc letterbox, and then DVD, then Blu-ray, then 4K Blu-ray, and it's just I've never seen it done. I've never seen a transition like that done with one scene, and it's just absolutely amazing how far we've come with home video. And so I definitely recommend everybody watch that if they can. But yeah, it was a crappy VHS movie, and not movie, but like, you know, transfer. And honestly, it didn't really make that big of an impact at that time in my life. Like, I didn't fully appreciate what was going on. Like, Vietnam was never taught in schools where I'm from. Just never.
Really?
It's
really?
Like I was
That's
talking
crazy.
with my wife last night, and I was like, did you ever learn about Vietnam? She's like, no. Like, all that we knew was that it happened, and that it was Nixon and LBJ, and you know, we try to forget about it as a country.
That's okay. Just as a quick detour with that, that's insane. Like, when we all know I'm the old man of the three of us, but like, there was even a comic book series. It's one of my favorite comic book series when I was growing up, called The Nam, that a Vietnam veteran wrote. There was a Vietnam veteran writing G.I. Joe. My dad, we knew about the POWMIA thing. I knew about all of the presidents who were involved in it. I knew about the conspiracy theory that Kennedy was killed because he wanted to pull us out of Vietnam. All of that stuff. I mean, because that plays into JFK, which comes out in 1991 and, is a big piece of everything. So it disturbs me because it wasn't even so much school where Vietnam was talked about. It was so much a part of the culture when I was going through middle school and high school that I can't even imagine not knowing like all of these sorts of intricacies about everything. That's wild to me.
Not even a little bit, man. Like everything that
Wow.
I know, I learned from my parents or from my own research. My parents, of course, lived through it. And I can tell you everything that you want to know about the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Afghan, whatever, Desert Storm. I can tell you all about that stuff. But Vietnam, no. And so like when I watched it, it didn't really make that. Obviously I knew about it and I knew that, the little details about it, like the broad strokes, but it didn't really make an impact on me except for Marlon Brando.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I watched that, I my face was against the TV. I was like, good Lord. Like, that is amazing. Like, oh my God. Like, and I had it memorized for years. I had that monologue memorized for years, the horror speech. And every once in a while, like even before we started doing House of Coppola, I would just pop in the monologue on YouTube. Like I have it favorited. I would just listen to that. And my wife actually made fun of me because like she was off doing something and she came back and she's like, yeah, I never have to worry about you, Tristan, about what you're watching. Cause like when my back is turned, you're just trying to memorize the Kurt speech again. But then I watched the Redux version and I thought it was way too long, but it was really nice to see that extra stuff. Like I kind of saw it as this is a fun thing. Like this is a fun to watch and see what else was shot because of all the horror stories of shooting and the making of this film. And I watched the documentary too, long time ago. But I still preferred the theatrical version. And then the final cut came out. And yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today.
It's interesting because the first time I encountered Apocalypse Now was not the first time I encountered Apocalypse Now. And I didn't even realize that at the time.
Was it Apocalypse then?
No, well, yes. Apocalypse before. You wind the clock all the way back. There was a gentleman named Ernie Feselius, and he made a parody movie called Hardware Wars. Now, back in the old days, kids, they used to show short films and parodies and stuff like that in front of features just as a normal sort of everyday part of life. Sort of, if you think about it in terms of Pixar movies, when you get that little short film in front of it, usually when you're seeing it in the theater, like you saw Lava before, I think it was Moana, and those sorts of things, you get these sort of little mood pieces. They would do that similarly with theaters. Now, I was coming up, that was very much going out of vogue when I was a kid. I remember.
I was going to say, I was like, I feel like I need to give you some arthritis medication from you telling me the story.
No. Well, the thing is, I also grew up in the hinterlands, so the changes to the theater going experience sort of move out in waves from the city centers, and so like this explosive blast of these things changing caught up to us just as I was becoming aware of going to the movie theater and stuff like that. Anyway, I had seen this collection of parodies from Ernie Feselius, and it was called Pork Lips Now. And it made no sense. It was silly.
Was Miss
and it was
Piggy
funny.
in it? Like,
I'll get to it in a second. So I see Apocalypse Now on Letterboxd Video, thanks to my legendary friend Joey, who gets mentioned all the time. He saw it and he said, "Oh, you got to see it." I watched it. I remember the first viewing when that tiger jumped out of the jungle. I just about went through the wall behind me. And that was part of the experience, was I realized how invested I was in the film, and I just couldn't love it enough. And then another friend of mine, they re-released Pork Lips Now as part of a Hardware Wars special edition collection. And so I saw Pork Lips Now again. And what Pork Lips Now is it's about 10, maybe 15 minutes. And it parodies Apocalypse Now as a guy who's recruited to go kill Madman Mertz, who's selling meat at low prices. and has to take care of him. And there are all of these magnificently funny gags. If you've seen Apocalypse Now, it's really funny. So I highly recommend you can go on YouTube. You can seek out Porklips Now. If you've seen Apocalypse Now, you'll enjoy it. Flash forward to the Redux, which of course I watched as quickly as I could. And that was interesting to me because as I recall it, and I could be misremembering, I could be inventing a connection. If I recall correctly, part of the motivation was Lucas getting away with releasing the special edition of Star Wars is partially what spurred Coppola toward going back and expanding it, saying, oh, well, he could do it, so can I. And knowing about, bringing Walter Murch back and re-editing everything from beginning to finish. And Murch actually talks about it in a book called The Conversations, which is a series of interviews he did with the writer of English Patient. And it's a fascinating book. Anybody should read it. And then I didn't watch Final Cut until just for this show. So I know that that's a whole lot of backstory, but it seems fitting for a film that has so much backstory to it. Darren, what do you know about the production history of Apocalypse Now? Like what knowledge is sitting in there for you?
That it was absolute hell and almost killed Coppola. And when you think about, again, the hours shot and just probably around 2/3 through the movie, it really started to hit me where you're just thinking, okay, this is late 70s. Like all of this is in camera. Like all of this was filmed, and just the complexities and you're on location in the jungle for like the majority of this movie. And I'm just like, I wouldn't want to make this film. Like, this sounds like terrible.
That's why Al Pacino turned it down. Like, that was one of his. Coppola went to Pacino and said, like, hey, do you want to do this? He's like, no, I know what this is going to be. He's like, this is going to be 5 months of you, yelling to me through a radio on a helicopter, and I'm going to be in the swamp for 5 months. No, thank you.
I mean, that's actually probably what it would have been. So, yeah. So I knew that it was definitely a lot, just physically the toll to get it done. I'm pretty sure I knew it had gone over budget. There was it probably dramatically affected Coppola and his health and all of that, I'm sure. But
he lost 100 pounds and threatened to kill himself like numerous times.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
yeah.
And there's even highly recommend. One of the greatest documentaries you'll ever watch is by Coppola's wife, and it's called Hearts of Darkness, A Filmmaker's Apocalypse. And I'm sure Tristan and I
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it though. Yeah.
But just going from the beginning, again, we've talked about the production achievements that Coppola had prior to this movie and the pull that he had and those sorts of things. And sometimes you try to transport that mentally to the modern day. There's 0% chance that would have ever happened. And I think that this movie is fascinating simply because of the fact that it's a movie that Harvey Keitel gets fired from after they've started filming. And I can't think of a single production now. Can you imagine the blog explosion of lead actor fired from Apocalypse Now? Is Coppola's career over? This movie's doomed. It's the worst thing that's ever been filmed. Here's why it will be true. Like, it would be.
Oh, that's the first thing I thought of when you said that, was just like, oh, this movie's doomed. That's exactly what would happen.
Right. And this film it didn't just almost kill Coppola. It almost killed Sheen. It almost killed so many people like who just had enough. And it really, I think, cemented Marlon Brando as just nobody wanting to work with him anymore. He shows up on set. You have a movie about going to get this military commander who's the most elite of special commandos. He shows up overweight. He shows up without his lines memorized. And that's why he's shot so much in shadow. And it's ridiculous because you watch the movie and it's engrossing. But now with all of this knowledge in my head, I look at the way Brando's shot and I can see it now. And it seems so much, it seems such an achievement because it's such an artistic achievement motivated by a purely practical consideration.
Brando, yeah, like just to add on to what you were saying, Brando showed up 88 pounds overweight. And that's why he's shot where they don't show his belly. And they're also like Coppola tries to shoot at like an upwards angle so that he looks like a Hulk, kind of like he's just like because in the book he's supposed to be tall and thin. But this one is just trying to show that he's an impressive man. He not only did he not have his lines memorized, he didn't read the script and he didn't read the book. And so Coppola read the book out loud to him over a couple of days. And Coppola was so furious with him that he refused to shoot his scenes. And the assistant director shot his scenes.
So you're saying Coppola is the Jaws shark not working of this film? Or sorry, not Coppola. Brando is the Jaws shark not working of this film.
And also, Dennis Hopper, I think there was a misunderstanding between him and Brando just yelled at him and laid into him for just a slight misunderstanding. Hopper thought it was hilarious, and so just continued to antagonize him to get him to blow up as much as possible. And Brando refused to work with Hopper, and so that's why they only share one scene. And in that scene, he throws a book at him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hilarious,
and it is hilarious because again, this is I guess the waning era of old Hollywood sort of thing. You couldn't possibly get away with that now, as even if you were a Brando level star. They have dispatched a personal trainer 3 months ahead of time. They're feeding you. They're taking you to the gym. You have a personal person carrying you around. And additionally, Brando is such a name that he can get away with it. It's almost his whole career after The Godfather becomes performance art about what can he get away with and still get paid for it. And it's absolutely mind-boggling that the studio didn't pull the plug on this however many months into it. I don't know how this movie gets released. Harrison Ford, you mentioned him earlier, Darren. I believe Ford filmed his scene in this before he was actually cast in Star Wars or something like that. And I may be misremembering, but it's definitely before Star Wars started filming. And if you think about it, George Lucas comes along and he completely revolutionizes the entire movie industry
during the production of this film.
Before Ford is even seen in this movie. Like, that's insane. When you think about the absolute industry impact of Star Wars, and Lucas pulls that off in 3 years, and Coppola, I mean, it's mind-boggling how much went into this production. So that goes into the next question. Knowing all of these production woes, or at least hearing rumors about them, Darren, did you see a film that reflected those woes, or did you see a film that benefited from those woes, or was it detectable at all to you? Was this just, if you didn't know that, would it have even come across you that there were any problems?
Well, first off, I didn't know that was Dennis Hopper. So that's, because they're all so young. I could barely recognize them. I had the same thing with a lot of The Godfather, but no, I would say it's so funny. It's so meta having Coppola be the on-site director who's like making the Vietnam era documentary film, whatever, that one scene where he's talking to Martin Sheen, he's like, "Oh no, keep moving, keep walking." And I was like, wait, why is Coppola like, did they put the camera on the wrong side and it's aimed back at Coppola for some reason? But no, I don't feel, I didn't see any woes. Honestly, the craftsmanship in this movie, I think, really shines through, and the emotion and performance that he gets out of these people is amazing. But I can definitely see how is it Kurtz is the name of the general?
Yes. Colonel Kurtz.
Colonel Kurtz, yeah. The fact that we don't see him till the very, very, very end, like, it almost kind of feels like, because I know Brando and I know that Brando's a pain, it's like, was Kurtz supposed to show up earlier? We just end up not seeing him until the very last moment because we literally can't deal with him. And that was, who knows if that was the case. But no, overall, I don't think it suffered visually. Everything that you see, at least on the version that I saw with the final cut, everything that was on camera was amazing. And it And just again, this is Coppola as a director where the framing of the shot, the lighting, the backlighting, the times that you go silhouette against the sun and things, like everything is consciously chosen. It's not just like, oh yeah, we're gonna have the helicopters come in left to right, so let's I guess we'll put the camera over there and just shoot. No, like it is storyboarded and thought and crafted. And I mean, you have a lot of semi-transparent shots with overlays, and you're just going on this emotional journey. So no, it did not feel. I'm sure it was hell to produce, but it's all gold on film. Is how I feel.
Now, in terms of that emotional journey, I do want to ask you first, because it's your first viewing. Do you feel that the emotional journey was satisfying? Do you feel that it was clearly communicated? Do you feel at the end of this that you had that, lack of a better word, cathartic experience through Willard? Do you feel that you could empathize and understand the journey they had been on from beginning to finish, or was this just too bloated? Was it too meandering?
No, I feel that I went on a journey. I mean, the beginning of the movie, he's, we're not sure about him, and he's, you got the crazy surfing scenes, which feel out of left field. You're like, wait, what? I don't remember hearing anything about surfing scenes. But by the time you get to the end, I was almost expecting him to just sit down and be like, I'm the Colonel now. Like, it would not have surprised me if he slipped into the Heart of Darkness and stayed there. And like I learned in film school, once you have your climax, you end the movie as fast as possible. And they do. As soon as, Kurtz is dead, the movie's over within minutes. But no, I did feel a payoff on the journey I was taken on, the descent into the darkness up the river, as his boatmates are dying, as you can feel like they're off the map. You have a little bit of a lifeline with the radio, but really it could go. You can tell he knows I may not be walking out of here. Like, we are so far gone at this point.
What about you, Tristan? Do you feel that this version is successful in maintaining that emotional connection despite its longer running time, or do you think that it should have been theatrical cut and walk away?
No, I appreciate Coppola for coming back and redoing his work and re-editing, because this is one of those things where when you know about the production history, you know that 230 hours were filmed, and you know about how crazy it was behind the scenes. This is something that's never truly finished, and I appreciate that. I really do, and I think this is the type of film that deserves 3 cuts. If there was ever a film to deserve this many cuts, it's Apocalypse Now. So I really think that, like it was. It's not like he doesn't pretend that the theatrical release doesn't exist. I mean, who would be crazy enough to do that? But it's still available. No, I couldn't help myself. There's a lot of Lucas stuff in here. Like Harrison Ford's character is named G. Lucas for that reason, which I always thought is fun. And actually, the relationship, like Lucas was supposed to direct this film, and he pulled out, and Coppola never forgave him. Well, I shouldn't say never forgave him, but like it ended their friendship, and it took almost a decade before they even spoke again. But to answer your question, John, at the end, I always want a little bit more of a denouement. I want a little bit of an epilogue. I want a debrief. I'm not saying we needed it, but I wanted it. I wanted some sort of falling action with Willard. I felt like we needed that, because we saw this severely unhinged man at the beginning of the film who's clearly gone through a lot, who's an alcoholic, who's struggling. And I love that scene in his hotel room. And I think, that's Sheen giving it his all. Like, Sheen was actually drunk in that scene. It was his 36th birthday, I think. He was himself an alcoholic. He was not taking care of himself. And he was going through a lot of crap at that time. He had a lot of demons. And so he felt very connected with the character. And a lot of people know this story, but like when he punches the mirror and he cuts himself, that was real. Like, that wasn't scripted. That just happened. And he told Coppola and the camera crew, just follow me, just roll with it. And you could tell that he just poured his heart out into it. And so I wanted some sort of resolution to that. I wanted a bookend to that, where you see this broken man at the beginning and you see some sort of healing at the end, or maybe not, maybe not. But he like, Darren, you talked about how you wouldn't be surprised if he said he's like, I'm the colonel now.
Right.
And they definitely raised that question. Like, when he was standing with that machete in front of,
and they're bowing to him, like he's in control.
Like, he could have taken over at that moment if he wanted to. So that decision was made. They offered the mantle to him, and he said, no, I wanted a little bit more after that, just a little bit. And so I do think the journey was great, obviously. And I liked following Willard as a character, even though he's not a good person, but I wanted a little bit more resolution at the end.
I can understand that. I actually like the way that the movie ends, specifically because it spurs those sorts of conversations. Where did he go from there? What did you get from it? Did he feel completed by accomplishing his journey and refocused because he saw the path he was on? Or was it something where he then goes off and he said he's never going back to America? And does he keep going upriver? Does he live in the jungle himself and just, live off the land sort of thing? Or is he destined to keep going down the river? He's looked into the abyss has looked into him, and now he's emptiness. He's nothing. And I guess I don't want more denouement, because I like the fact that I walk out of this wanting to talk about what Willard's next step is. There's resolution without there's satisfaction without resolution, is the way I should say it. And I think that's the reason why, even before the final cut, I gravitated toward the Redux, is because I think that the original cut stays much more, it keeps the framing much more in the sense that this is a postulation on the unique American folly of the Vietnam conflict. Whereas introducing the French family at the plantation recasts the thematic structure of the film as expanding it out from that and rooting Willard instead in a larger existential sort of thing. It broadens the theme, as it were, especially because you see and understand that that this specific conflict has so much more around it and behind it than even the history books tend to give recognition toward. And I think that it doesn't at all absolve, the American missteps. If anything, the family calls out and says, you guys are making the same damn mistake we did. Well, how can you do that sort of thing? And so that's why I've always gravitated toward that stuff. And I think it also is a very interesting turning point, because it does propel Willard beyond simply a military mission to that philosophical one down the river. It elevates his journey, I think. That scene, that whole thing, is nowhere to be found in
the plantation scene.
Yeah, in the theatrical cut. Do you think, since this is the only cut you've seen, would you have excised that?
Yeah, I could take it or leave it. I don't necessarily feel it. It feels like it's a lot of just talking. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be focusing on, because the camera's just kind of stuck in a corner while they're all talking around the table, and I'm still trying to pick up, like, well, whose house is this, and why are they there, and what's going on? And like, it didn't connect to our characters really. Like, they're there, but they're just, it's kind of like in a video game where you come across like you thought abandoned house and it's not, and then you leave and it's still abandoned, it still has its issues, and you being there didn't really change anything. So thus it doesn't really change anything on their characters. So yeah, I could definitely see why they would not include it in the theatrical cut, because you can cut the entire thing and they're just still going upriver.
And I understand the criticism. I do. I am drawn to it, for that very, specific reason I already hit. And I know that there are people who very much believe that the theatrical cut that's it. He shouldn't have come back and done anything beyond that, because that's the version that everybody fell in love with. That's the version that got acclaim. So why not leave well enough alone and go from that? And that's probably also why I think that the whole process with the Redux and the final cut is fascinating, because it is like watching process, because, in a sense, it's getting to be, I wind up feeling like I'm part of the process, in the sense that I'm in that screening room saying, oh, okay, this is your latest version, and then we move on to another version. Okay, that's the version you have. It feels like an interesting exercise to me.
When I watched the Redux version and the plantation scene came up, it was kind of, I was feeling like, in for a penny, in for a pound. Sure, why not? Let's just throw the kitchen sink in there. I was very, very surprised to see it in the final cut, because when it pops up, like specifically how it's timed with the rest of the piece, it just kills the momentum dead. It just absolutely kills it from moving forward. It feels like we're just slamming the brakes on the storytelling and slamming the brakes on the journey. And John, everything you said about, philosophically and expanding the viewpoint is absolutely true. But from a storytelling standpoint, I just don't think it holds water. And it just, also, I had a hard time understanding what they were saying at points. I had to rewind it a couple of times. I'm like, oh my God, that accent's so thick. But it was, it felt like we were just treading water at that point. And also, for some reason, like when I was actually watching the Redux, when we first see that woman on the balcony from the distance, I was like, oh, we're going to see her naked. I just know it. I just know we're going to see her naked. I don't know how. Maybe it's a sixth sense that I have with filmmaking. I don't know. But it was very strange, and it felt very needless. But like just everything about it felt like, I don't know, gratuitous isn't the right word, but just, I don't know, circle jerk. I don't know.
I interesting choice of words. I think that, I acknowledge that I tend to be, not in the typical mainstream take on that scene, but I do think it's, like that's the whole thing, right? Is it necessary? No. Obviously, I watched a version of this film that never had it in there, and I fell in love with it. But, for the reasons I said, it's not just the real world stuff. I do think that it puts Willard, it changes his trajectory in a certain sense, because I think that's the moment where Willard, very importantly, it makes his choice at the end not to take the mantle. I think it makes it make more sense, because he's already graduated to this. He's had this woman, at this whole family, everything. He understands that Kurtz and he are part of a larger world, and he's been navigating up to that point with a very narrow view of the world that they inhabit. And so I think it contributes to the ending in that sense. But, again, that everybody can disagree, agree to disagree, as the kids love to say, that sort of thing. Now, in terms of the score, Darren, I wanted to ask you, do you feel that it was effective? Do you feel that it was too minimalist? What would your expectation of a score for this sort of film have been?
Lots of row your boat. No, I enjoyed the score. We all know, I should say, the one piece that's permeated culture the most is the Flight of the Valkyries scene. Like, that's what I think of when I think of the score for Apocalypse Now, when they're, playing it out of the helicopters. But yeah, no, I think the score, they use it, I think, enough where it's but by keeping it not under every moment, there's moments when you're just alone in the jungle, and those moments feel more alone when there's not music and moviness. It's just the sound of the boat and, probably gunfire and smoke. Oh my God, guys, why is there so much smoke in this movie? And there'll be like yellow smoke and then red smoke. And I'm like, every time I'm thinking, so while they're just chilling, apparently a native decided to pop a smoke canister, right? Because red smoke doesn't appear in nature last time I checked. So that was the only part that kind of took me out of it a little bit in the whole movie. I get it used effectively in, the mist of the day and all that stuff, but there was quite a handful of shots where it reminded me again of like student film days where it's like, okay, guys, get ready, camera. Okay, smoke. Even though nothing is blown up, but we're going to add smoke, add the billows to this shot, and then we're going to roll camera. There's a lot of smoke, guys. A lot of colored smoke in this movie.
I just have to imagine how much quicker the production would have been had they not used the smoke, because resetting the scenes would have been so much more straightforward. Most likely.
They use it on the boat. They use it on the water. They use it, everywhere.
Yes. Now, Tristan, beforehand, we went back and forth a little bit about the use of the Doors music, which when Milius was writing the script, I'll go ahead and kick it off here, but I want you to go ahead and share, the history of using The End by the Doors and why it makes such a prominent appearance here in the film.
I absolutely love the Doors in this film. I think before the score was written, I think when like Coppola had like a 4-hour cut or something ridiculous like that, or maybe even longer, it was exclusively just the Doors music that he cut it to, or he did like an assembly cut to. He went to school with Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek, and that he asked them for permission. He's like, can I use the music of the Doors? They're like, yeah, sure. And so he used it exclusively. That's the cut I wanted to see, because I friggin' hate the original music in this movie. I hate it. It's my least favorite thing of this movie.
Really? What is it that annoys you about it?
The synthesizer completely undercuts the mood for me. It kills the mood. It takes me out of the picture. I don't feel like I'm there. There's a few times when it's done pretty well where you feel uneasy, like when Chief dies. Like, I think the score is done really well. Like the synth music is kind of makes you very apprehensive, where you're like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going to happen? But 90% of the time, it feels cheap. It feels clunky. It has no rhythm. It just exists to annoy. I can't stand it.
I found it so unobtrusive as to be unnoticeable through most of the film.
That's the only thing that I could notice when the score was going on, was how bad it was.
That's so fascinating, because it barely registers for me. I think there's one scene where and try to pick this one out in the movie, kids, where the boat's going down the river and the music starts playing, and I'm kind of like, this doesn't really fit here. I would love to see a version of the film cut to the Doors music. I could probably, if you want to go into the booth, I could probably generate a version, because the Doors are the greatest band in the history of rock and roll. Jim Morrison was its greatest lyricist, even though he was simply a drunken, raging hillbilly. And I think that of special note is that Ray Manzarek was such a pain in the ass that his consultancy was ended with Francis Ford Coppola very quickly, because since Manzarek did go to film school, he felt free to start offering critiques, and not just critiques, but scathing critiques of how Coppola was using the music. And Coppola said, "Get the F out." And, so that's a very legendary sort of thing. But you have to, what's really interesting, and I think this is a bit of context that does bear mentioning, is that Jim Morrison had just died in 1971 or faked his death. No, he died. And so this film coming out, Morrison was going through something of a resurgence at the end of the decade. The Doors released an American Prayer. It got a Grammy nomination. I don't know whether it won or not. You had the first biography of Morrison, No One Here Gets Out Alive, which had been tinkered with by Manzarek to heighten the legend and the myth as to whether he had lived or died in Paris. That's coming out. So there was a big Doors wave about to come through. And I think that this film winds up a little bit caught in that because of its use of the end. And what I find really interesting about that, that use is it's entirely appropriate. It's entirely, in a way, perfect, regardless of whether, the development history of the song and stuff like that. But it really is such a perfect mood piece because it really is one of those signature Doors songs, dwelling in that nihilistic viewpoint and that sort of morose existence, that philosophical angst that really represented that time period. Because in the Summer of Love, the Doors were, if rock and roll was a big party in the Summer of Love, the Doors were that brooding guy sitting in the corner, nursing a single beer, glaring at everybody because he couldn't figure out how to dance to the hip new surfer tunes and stuff like that. And so all that to say that I can't fathom why they wouldn't have just committed to using Doors music largely through the whole thing. Yeah. I would have to wonder if maybe it's because there's so many things lost in the mist of time. I can't imagine why you wouldn't just push ahead with that.
I'm not quite sure either, because that is a version I would like to see. I would love somebody to kind of recut it with just the Doors music.
I'll do it. Come on, let's make it happen. I promise you, I could actually sit there, probably watch this movie and just be like, this song, this song, this song.
I know you could.
Oh my gosh, I have them all memorized. It's kind of pathetic. So, here we are. We love to use the phrase rounding third, but I guess I'll say that we're past the plantation here. And
we haven't even talked about like all the people in it, like all these amazing performances.
Right.
I mean, I kind of want to talk about like Robert Duvall.
I love
crap.
Robert Duvall. I loved Robert Duvall in this more than any of the Godfather stuff. I mean, he has a way minor role in The Godfather, but it was like, okay, now you've given him something to chew on, and he's crazy. He's like, it's like, wait, why are we talking about surfing? And then he chases after him in the helicopter, and but he does a great job. And Lawrence Fishburne, super young Lawrence,
14-year-old,
14, yeah. So that he would look that much younger. To the audience, emphasize the fact
he lied about his age.
See, the thing is, the story that I recall wasn't that he was cast because he lied about his age, but because, or maybe when they found out about it, they said he looked so young. As a result, it emphasized the fact that we were sending kids into war, and sort of the moral atrocity of that.
Well, like if they knew he was 14, the rules for filming would have been very different. And they weren't. Like, they treated him like he was much
17,
older.
yeah.
Like 17, because he said that he was 17. And
he was
one thing
by the time the movie was released.
I think he was 21 by the time the movie was released.
He had a mortgage and a divorce.
Yeah.
No, it was one thing that always kills, like, man, his death scene. Oh, that hits me so hard. And it's always a surprise. It's that one shot of him getting hit and thrown back. It's like half a second. And
while the tape of his mom is playing in the background. And
that's actually Larry Fishburne's mom on the recording. That's actually her mom. And that's so haunting. And it takes me, no matter how many times I watch it, it always takes me by surprise. And it kills me. And Albert Hall's reaction, I love Albert Hall, by the way. I mean, that's not a name that we hear enough. But he is in so much, and his voice is so perfect and unique, and he can play everything from, a chief, a riverboat, or a manager of a baseball team, and everything in between. He can play a judge. It's just, he's so great, and he's absolutely perfect in this role. And like Lance B. Johnson playing Sam Bottoms, the surfer, who's just kind of along for the ride, and then experiments with drugs, and then loses his mind at the end. This is always something that surprises me too. I can never remember if he actually, if Willard actually grabs Lance as he exits, or if he just leaves him behind. And it always makes me kind of giggle whenever Willard's like leaving after he kills Kurtz. He's just like, okay, come on, Lance, let's go. Let's see if we can get you some help.
Well, I see him just as that innocent soul, and I think that's a real sign that Willard has pulled himself out of the madness, is the fact that he spares him from going through that. But one name you didn't mention that I think deserves a lot of credit for his performance is Frederick Forrest.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
As Chef, he's ridiculous. And the scene on the boat where they kill everybody, and because the woman was going to protect the puppy, and he absolutely loses his mind. That scene is one that just, I think, is gut-wrenching, because he's already on the edge, and he's already been saying, why are we even looking at the boat? What do we care? Just let him go. It doesn't even matter. And he's actually in an argument about it. And then everything goes the way he's afraid it's going to go. And it's all for a puppy. And he's just snapped at that point. And I think that he winds up being the most symbolic character for the average soldier in a conflict like this, who's a good person, who's just following orders, who doesn't even want to fight. He just wants to ride the boat. He just wants to have minimal conflict possible, try to stay out of these situations as much as he can till he goes home. He wanted to cook, and he didn't want to have any of this. He just wants to get back home. And, there's absolutely no romanticism about the character at all, but he'll still do his job because that's what he was sent there to do. Okay, fine. And when Kurtz puts his head into Willard's lap, it always affects me because I feel such sympathy, such empathy, such connection to that character as a guy who doesn't even want to be there. He doesn't know how to get out of it. And he's the one, he's just following order, like it's one of those things where it's like, I feel bad for him because he's not following like a bad order. He's not going, and we've seen him try to be a good person and prevent the conflict. And he's still the one that gets his head cut off.
It's not like when the Nazis said they were just following orders.
Right. And he gets his head cut off just because Kurtz wants to prove a point that he can do it. And to sort of like break Willard's mind.
When Chef is looking for mangoes and then sees the tiger and then runs away, like your initial reaction is kind of like you're shocked, and then you start to laugh because you were shocked and you're laughing at his reaction. But then all of a sudden, his reaction is sustained. Like he's just like, oh, like you kind of laugh at him getting on the boat. But then when he is actually on the boat and he starts screaming, ripping his clothes off, you're just like, oh, wait, no, this isn't funny. Like, This isn't funny like how a movie would have portrayed it as funny. Like, imagine if you're him. Imagine if that actually happened to you. Like, you're in a foreign country fighting a war you don't want to fight, and then an animal that could easily rip you apart without even thinking about it. And all you want to do is get some mangoes. And it's just like, it's heartbreaking. Like that scene and his reaction is heartbreaking because you're like, no, yeah, I'd be screaming and tearing my clothes off too if that happened to me, because he's just had enough. It's just, I'm getting like worked up just thinking about it now. Like this movie is so evoking of that feeling, of that experience. And like, Darren, was there ever a moment?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like, you look like you were going to say something. I don't want to cut you off, but
yeah, I was going to say, just again, there's just these string of these scenes along the river, and like you have like the USO out of nowhere, like now we're at a USO event, and it's that the trench between the soldiers and the performers, and how and you're just like, why are we? It felt like we're doing this on the front line. Like, why here? And it was so obscure. But I mean, obviously that's the point. But then, man, when we got to the leaderless platoon, that was, oh my gosh, because they're all like it's surreal because it's nighttime and there's constant gunshots and screaming, and Willard is trying to figure out, like, oh, what's going on? And at the end, he's just like, no, there's no commander here. Like they're doomed. They're locked in this battle. It's like a dream, and it's portrayed so well. So, I mean, we'll talk more about that scene, but there's just all these scenes where it's not like they're pushing him deeper into the madness, but they're just showing different facets of the same diamond as we're falling down this well. But yeah, the leaderless group, that was, because again, I'm sure there are people watching this who have been at war who are like, yeah, I get that. Totally get that. Like, you lose the command structure and the ability to have that part of your humanity and that tether, and you just go with what you're programmed with. I thought when he was talking to the one guy who was, I guess, the sharpshooter or whoever was going to take out the guy on the wire, I thought he was going to be dead. Just like, oh, I'm going to go get Bob. Bob's dead, but you're not even reacting to that. Like, I thought that's what was going to happen.
Well, when we got to that scene when it was like that you just described, like when there was no CO and everything like that, that's when it cemented for me that this was almost like Dante's Inferno, where they're on that journey, and like each side mission, like each side experience is like a new level of hell, a new circle of hell. And when we reach that specific moment, and it's all a futile, like they're all doomed. There are people who just don't want to be involved. Like, you see the black soldiers who are just like, nope. They were just like off on the side saying like, like they're just trying to survive. And then you have the people on the guns who are just like, who again are like trying to get on the guys on the sea lot. It felt like, I know this isn't, I don't take me too literally, but it just, the way that they said, they're like, like they rebuild the bridge and then they blow it up at nighttime. They rebuild the bridge and they blow it up at nighttime. It felt like once they left, these people were in a loop for eternity. That this was their hell. Right. That this was the sins that they committed in life brought them here.
You can check in, but you can never leave.
Yeah, like, don't take me too literally here. I'm not making some sort of analogy to like Vietnam soldiers. I'm just saying, like, in the term of like Virgil showing Dante down the path, like this is one of those hells, one of those circles of hell where you can never leave, and you just have to repeat it for the rest of eternity. Like it was bone chilling, this scene.
Yes, I agree. And I think there's that aspect. And then there's also, I think, a very interesting commentary about the nature of war itself. When we build the bridge, they blow it up. We build the bridge, they blow it up. Talking about that eternal criticism of war, of what is your objective? What are you trying to accomplish here?
Yeah.
What
can you even win? Is it possible to win war?
What is winning?
Right. What is the point of all of this? Why are they even here? They're going to blow up the bridge. Well, fine. Let them blow up the bridge and leave, or go do something else, because nothing's going to get resolved. To your point, Tristan, this underscores, I think, the idea that there's never going to be a resolution to this. And I think, again, because I'm on the eternal quest to defend the scene, then you get the French plantation, where, again, this has just been going on for so long. The Americans are just the latest to be caught in it. It's just never going to end. Even if it, the war ends, it's still going to continue somewhere else. It's just going to keep going, because that's just the nature of things. And that's just the way it's going. And I think it just helps. It helps gird the reasoning for Kurtz having gone mad in the first place. You can understand why Kurtz snaps.
Oh, you totally buy it. Of this. By the time you get to him, you don't at the beginning. Yes. You're like, oh, some general went crazy. Great. But then by the time you get there and you've been on that journey, you're like, oh, okay, I totally get this.
Yeah. And
then you get Scott Glenn's character, who went there and defected. I didn't know that was Scott Glenn for years. Like, I had no idea that was Scott Glenn. And it's just crazy. Apparently, like, most of his scenes are on the cutting room floor. But yeah, it's just, that is crazy to me, where it's just like, sell the house, sell the kids. I'm never coming back. I love that. Never coming back home. Home is crossed out and replaced with crap. What was it replaced with? But it was very symbolic because it was like home is crossed out as in, he doesn't see that as his actual home anymore. He sees Kurt's in that area as his home. Like even just in that letter, it told you everything that you need to know about that character.
And I think underscores that character truly had snapped as well, because I can't imagine ever giving up air conditioning to go live like that. I mean, if Kurtz had figured out how to engineer refrigeration, okay, I'm talking.
Well, their air conditioning was pour a tiny cup of water over your head slowly and dramatically in the dark, half-lit cave.
I do want to say, and I know this is going to sound comical, but when we first encounter Kurtz and Brando runs his hand over the top of his head, my first reaction always is, good Lord, that man's hands are enormous. Like, they look like he could just grab the top of my skull and crush it at a whim. Like, I'm terrified of him in that moment, which I think gets back to the fact that Coppola figured out how to shoot him and make him look fearsome and intimidating.
Which is crazy because he's shorter than I am. And I'm not a tall person.
But they shoot him low. He looks huge. He looks like a giant.
Yeah. Well, that's like, Schwarzenegger's only like 5'11" and a half or something like that. But you watch his movies, it looks like he's,
only 5'11", only 6 foot.
There's one shot in the very end where Willard has killed, I can't remember if it was right after he killed Kurtz or right before. I think it was after. And I mean, I'm looking into symbolism because it's Coppola, but who knows if it is. But there's where he's stepped out of the ruins and the masses, which could totally still kill him, are right there. And he turns his face into the shadow, like into darkness, and it like completely, engulfs his face. And it's just like a moon crescent on his cheek. And then after a moment, he kind of turns back. And I kind of looked at that as like he went to the edge and looked into the darkness, but then his character is then now choosing not to stay in the darkness and to look back into the light. He's not fully out of the light, but he did turn back at the end. And again, I don't know if that was on purpose and symbology, but it's Coppola, so very well could have been. So
I think that Coppola is, and this is, again, this winds up borrowing, I guess, from Lucas, with his whole thing about like, it's made in the editing booth sort of thing. I think that Coppola is the type of person where, yes, that symbology is there. And I think it's sometimes subconscious with him, and he doesn't discover it until it's in the editing booth when he's actually putting everything together.
That's why he shot 200 hours.
Right. He realizes I have 2,000 times as much footage as I need. Okay, maybe we can find a shot here that I think symbolizes this. So maybe it's a happy accident. Maybe it isn't. But I mean, even going again to Tristan, something you mentioned earlier where, he wasn't actually shooting Brando, right? Hats off to that assistant director for pulling that one off, because he either followed really closely to very specific instructions, or he knew, I mean, I guess after, that long shooting, Coppola could just be like, how I want this. Sure do, boss. Anything that gets me home to my family quicker. Sure thing.
Yeah, right. I've missed several holidays and a few birthdays. It's
like, sir, he's very overweight. Well, just shoot him in darkness. You know how to do that.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yes,
it works with the theme.
Yeah.
So, this is obviously a very long film. It's a film chock full of, we could keep going on about this film for as long as the running time, but we know that that's not practical. So let's go ahead and let's pull out the blade. Let's rise out of the water and let's go to the temple. And Darren, I'm dying to know, what do you rate Apocalypse Now?
Oh, I give it a 5 for sure. It is just, it's a masterpiece. The way you get from the characters, the way you get from the story. And maybe there's just something about a war movie where again, like, I'm like, oh, here's the helicopter scene. Like, I know that scene. And then I get blindsided by all this surf talk. And I'm like, what? This is ridiculous. This is utterly ridiculous. He's focusing on surfing while the bomb, but that's the point, is it's absolutely ridiculous to focus on that while the beach is literally being fired upon by the enemy. And yeah. And then by the end of the payoff at the end with Kurtz and the fear, like, I don't know how this story is going to play out. And man, when they get, to that row of canoes, and once they pass that threshold, lots of thresholds passing, but when they get there, you're like, yeah, I don't know if you're all making it out of this, guys, because they're in the jungle. So yeah, five stars all the way. And maybe my son gives it 5 stars too. I was watching this and I literally got to the kill the water buffalo scene, and I feel a tap on my shoulder, and my little son had woken up in the middle of the night.
No.
I don't think he saw anything, but I was like, well, this is a great family bonding moment watching. Which I didn't
see.
Wow,
is gut wrenching.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's funny because Coppola has a lot of revisionist history when it comes to that scene.
I've heard some of the revisionist history
where, like, he says, he's like, on the commentary, on the DVD commentary, he says, he's like, you know what? I filmed a ritual. Like, they were doing this ritual. I thought I'd film it. And then it was great intercutting. What he neglects to include is that he bought and paid for the buffalo. He flew it in. And tons of other animals that they were going to slaughter. But then when he got the perfect shot with the water buffalo, he's like, that's fine. We can just continue with that.
Because I was thinking for a moment.
And all the other animals. Oh, thank God.
Because I was thinking, I'm like, initially I thought that it was an effect that they had made some sort of, because it's pretty much just like the cut down the neck. And it's, that's the big one where you're like, oh, how'd they do that? And then the more I watch it, I'm like, no, I think they're actually killing an animal on this. I mean, I didn't look the end of the credits to see if they had that little, blurb about. And I'm
Did
like,
not have that.
I don't think they're gonna have that
because like he got away with it just because he filmed it in the Philippines.
Right. Oh, of course.
And the Humane Society gave it a rating of unacceptable.
I'm sure they did. Yes.
I'm surprised that he gave them a cut to watch. Francis, when are we going to see this? It's just another week, but the movie's premiering in a week. Yeah, it's fine.
But yeah, but overall, yeah, five stars. I'd definitely watch it again, when I'm wanting to kind of just watch that descent. And now that I know more of the actors, because gosh, they're so young, it's so hard for me to tell. It's not my era, but there's still amazing performances all throughout.
Tristan, can you follow up Darren's rating and please the audience with yours?
Yes, I think this is a great film. I think this is a classic film. I think it's one for the ages, and just the mythology behind the making of it is intriguing alone. It's one of those where the making of the film is just as interesting as the film. But since we're judging the final cut, for all the things that I said previously, I friggin' hate the music with a fiery passion. And the French plantation thing is just, it's just a huge stick in the mud from momentum. And it kills it for me. I give it 4 diamonds through the head.
Well, I give it a 5. And so Darren and I are correct, and Tristan is the odd man out on this one.
I want to watch the theatrical again. It's been decades since I watched the theatrical cut. I want to watch that again and see if that bumps up my rating.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Before we get to our usual bit where we talk about where you can find us and everything, I wanted to let everybody know what we're going to be doing next here on Houselights. We will actually be entering the House of Spielberg.
But how, John? How could we possibly be tackling all of Spielberg's films?
Yes, we do not plan on covering Steven Spielberg for the next 3 years. Instead, we are going to be taking a very interesting tactic here, where we are going to take a film from Steven Spielberg from every decade of his career, But we're not going to pick Jaws because, I mean, come on. What else can we say about Jaws, everybody? Let's be honest with each other. That's a 5-minute show where everybody comes on and says 5 stars. Yeah, troubled production. Richard Dreyfuss. Okay, they didn't really get along. All right, great. USS Indianapolis. First time I ever heard about it. And good night. That's your Jaws podcast right there. So we're going to kick off with Sugarland Express, a movie that I've never seen. Darren, have you ever seen it?
Nope.
No,
I've never seen it either.
All 3 of us are going to be coming at this movie completely blind. I know virtually nothing about it. My Spielberg knowledge starts with Jaws, period. I didn't see anything he did before. I didn't see everything that he did in the 70s, and nobody wanted to do 1941. So we're going to do Sugarland Express. We're going to start off with that one. So be sure to get your copy, your streaming, whatever you want to rent it on. Be sure you watch that in time for next week's Houselights when we enter the house of Spielberg. With that said, Tristan, since you're odd man out and most likely to draw anger for your rating, where can people find you online?
You can find me at The Insane Robin on Twitter and Letterboxd. Please look for my upcoming podcast about Lower Decks called Second Contact, a Lower Decks commentary podcast. And Darren, where can we find you?
They can find me at drsci-fi.com, DRSCIFI, and they can also listen to me here on the network talking Star Trek on Steady Alpha 3 and talking about being a maker on Maker's Method.
Which reached top 56, right? 56 in hobby category.
I mean, sure. That's great. I'll put it on a coaster or a t-shirt. No, we're really happy with the response we've gotten for Maker's Method, and we're going to be having some guests soon. Not every week, but every once in a while, bring even more makers to hear even more methods.
Well, I think you should put that on a coaster like you said, but it should be a coaster that you make and design. That is our one demand. And you can find me out there in the wilderness of social media as Kessel Junkie, KESSELJUNKIE. And, connect on Letterboxd. For some reason, I can't quit Twitter because I'm sick in the head, I guess. And you can find me right here on the network co-hosting a show called Aggressive Negotiations, which is a Star Wars podcast that I co-host with Matthew Rushing. So until then, pop your popcorn, rent your Sugarland Express, and we will see you next time on House of Spielberg, part of the Houselights series.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.